chaos magic, Wanda. And that makes you the Scarlet Witch.
Friday. There was no other way.
This is our home.
Then let's fight for it.
I was sent by an old friend of your mother's. He heard you've been grounded. He'd like to meet with you.
Where?
Wanda, I know we can't stay like this. But before I go, I feel I must know. What am I?
You, Vision, are the piece of the Mind Stone that lives in me. You are a body of wires and blood and bone that I created. You are my sadness and my hope. But mostly you're my love.
Aloha. This is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man, coming to you live once again from beautiful Hawaii here on the island, Oahu, bringing you, yes you, the best TV show reviews on the entire island of Oahu. And yes, this is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man. And Friday night, last night, was the final concluding episode of WANDAVISION, episode 9 of season 1. Possibly the only season, although Kevin Feige has said that possibly it could be a season 2 coming, but that all depends on how Spider-Man, Far From Home, and then Doctor Strange, works out, I think. But remember our rating scale, shock a thumbs up, it's good to see, I recommend it. Shock a thumbs down, it's bad to see, it's junk, I don't recommend it. And for Episode 9 of WandaVision, the final episode, I would say it is a shock a thumbs up. Now, as you know, I've given pretty much every episode a shock a thumbs up from the reviews that I've done. And this one is probably, of course, the best. They saved the best for last. Despite the fact, it is still a shock a thumbs up, despite the fact that many of the questions from this season, from the series, remains unanswered. And a lot of our guesses as far as who was going to show up, what is behind this evil influence of Wanda, we were all guessing, is it Agatha, is it Mephisto, is it Nightmare? Well, if it is Mephisto or Nightmare, then we will just have to wait and see. Because right now, we don't know jack about any of that stuff, unfortunately. They did not reveal anything. My long suspected idea of it all was that Doctor Strange was going to show up at the end, probably an end credit scene. That didn't happen at all. There was no Doctor Strange. There was a Doctor Strange reference. And although it does set up for what's coming next for Spider-Man Homecoming, and then Doctor Strange into the multiverse of madness, if they just ended this, ended Wanda's arc right here, I don't think too many people, would really care after that. I mean, the way that they did it, I think. What am I trying to say here? This wraps up this season. We find out that it was Wanda all along, just as Monica Rambeau had said. Her grief had caused her to lash out. She created the vision, put up this mystical field, and we do find out that she is a magic user in the MCU, very much along the lines of Doctor Strange, that there have been witches throughout history, which what Agatha Harkness was indeed one, which shouldn't be so surprising since there were sorcerers, there in Tibet or wherever, where, with the Ancient One and Doctor Strange, and, who knows, witches and warlocks, etc. And then, so this mythology, and what they might have done plays well into, the upcoming Blade movie as well. That if there's witches, if there's magic, possibly demons or other dimensional creatures that, the lay person would believe to be demons, then why not one of them be vampires? That infects people strangely, and thus that started the whole werewolves, vampire, lycanthropy kind of scenarios. But none of that is directly referenced in WandaVision episode 9. I'm just spitballing here as far as what could be in the MCU. We never saw who the engineer was that designed the ship that failed, the vehicle that failed to go into the Hex with Monica Rambeau. She just ended up running into it. And that did indeed give her powers. So basically, as I suspected from my last review, there was a big fight between Wanda and Agatha, or Agatha Harkness. There was a big fight between the White Vision, the one being controlled by Sword, and Wanda's version of Vision. Unfortunately, they did not merge at the end, as I was suspecting, as I was hoping that they would be. But as the two could not defeat one another because they are so evenly matched, they are the same being of the same programming. So essentially, they could not defeat each other. They knew each other's moves. It was a stalemate. And Wanda being busy taking out Agnes, she could not, push, her vision to the winning side. It then fell to a logic puzzle or dilemma, which both of them could calculate that neither were the real Vision, but yet both were the real Vision, in a strange sense or turn of fate. Thus, Wanda's vision gives the White Vision access to all of the memories that were stored within him that Sword did not give him back. Thus, it is assumed that he has broken Sword's programming. Although he is not possibly the same man that he was before, he is definitely no longer a tool of Sword. And thus he runs off to think about his feelings, perhaps, or what his place is and who he is in this new world as this new being, both the Vision and the not so much the Vision. That kind of paralleled the comics where Vision was a long time ago reprogrammed or mapped out with memories of Wonder Man. That's very similar to what had taken place in the comic books with Wonder Man. Simon, I can't remember his last name, Simon, but he was a member of the Avengers way back. Basically, in the comics, since he was an android, Vision, and had no human emotions, he had his brain patterns mapped to Wonder Man's, and thus that laid the foundation for what would become the Vision and his personality. Very much becoming a separate being in itself, very much like in the MCU he did. But in this case, it was the Vision on WandaVision that mapped or released his memories, his mapped memories that were already inside him from before. So with those unlocked, he flies off to contemplate who he is and what his place is in the new world. Agatha is defeated by Wanda, basically exiled to remain in Westview, trapped into the guise of the nosy neighbor, the role that she was playing to trick Wanda to drain her power, as I had suspected. Yet in unable to do so, Wanda gets the upper hand, traps her there, and basically steals Agnes's book. She shuts down the hex, which of course destroys or dispels her children and the Vision after a tearful farewell. Yet at the very end, in the end credit scene, for the final end credit scene, we see Wanda living in a remote mountain cabin. Seems to be at peace. However, upon further reflection, or as we enter the cabin, we see that she is furiously going and studying the book. Now, some people have suspected that that is, as Doctor Strange, she's studying the tome that was left by Agatha in the astral plane, very much as Doctor Strange did to catch up on all of the reading to become the Sorcerer Supreme, as we had seen in the first Doctor Strange. However, Wanda's not sleeping in this as the other Doctor Strange was, as Doctor Strange was in his movie. Thus, I don't believe that she is in the astral plane or astral projecting, having her spirit study this book in-depthly while her physical body goes out and does everything. Because normally your body must remain still when you are projected into the astral plane. Therefore, I believe Wanda has set up an illusion of herself in her normal civilian guise, just doing mundane things in the cabin and around the grounds, so that should anyone come or anybody be looking at her, she's not drawing any suspicion. Meanwhile, she is really deep studying this tome, which gets her more familiar with her chaos magic and gets her even more powerful. And we hear that she, somehow her children are calling out to her. So apparently she is studying this book as a means to find them, which we suspect will rip open the multiverse as well. The other prior end credit scene is with Monica Rambeau. A scroll appears to her and says basically that Nick Fury is offering her a job, possibly as the go-between or director of S.W.O.R.D. on Earth, while he is up in the space station, a la Far From Home, Spider-Man Far From Home, where we had seen him at the end credit scenes. So he is really the controller of S.W.O.R.D. This fleeting glimpse that Hayward was in control of on Earth, unbeknownst of a space station already up there. Monica will probably get that position or head agent and, be able to exhibit her powers even further, as we will see in Captain Marvel Part 2, most likely sometime in the future. So maybe we'll even see her in the new Spider-Man movie, but I wouldn't press too much for that. Let's see. So what do I think that maybe Nightmare has stolen these children, or at least the memory of these children, and that he would be able to bring them back, or possibly Mephisto. I don't think I don't think Disney in itself will go with a devil-like character like Mephisto. I think that's a little too much for Disney. For Marvel, yes, that's a known character. I think it will remain Nightmare, and I think in an attempt to sway the Scarlet Witch and all of her power, as Agatha tells her she is more powerful than, Doctor Strange, the Earth Sorcerer Supreme. I think Nightmare will be using the memory of her children for her to rip apart the multiverse. As it is announced by Agnes before she is defeated, that it is her fate, her destiny to destroy the world. But I think that will actually be the multiverse colliding into one another. And thus very much like we had seen on Crisis on Infinite Earths in, the Berlanti-verse on CW. It'll be something like that, where all of the multiverses will be colliding, and that they will have to, Doctor Strange will have to get involved to save, much of it, if only just one, our own Earth, and maybe consolidate all of them. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know what more will happen with that one, but Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is, I think, 2 years away. This summer or next summer, we'll get Spider-Man No Way Home, which will shed a little bit more light on the multiverse and Wanda's role in ripping it open, where we will most likely see Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, as well as Tom Holland Spider-Man, and probably Doctor Strange will put them back together in the right places. Possibly, hopefully, some people suspect a Miles Morales crossover there as well, to bring him into live action, perhaps. So I'm not exactly sure what will happen after that, but I do know that I enjoyed WandaVision. I just wish that they had done a little bit more of a wrap-up, and definitely a little longer. I had hoped for an hour and a half, at least a solid hour, if not 2 hours, and they only went with 50 minutes. Feige says it's due to the cost of the show, but I think it would have been well worth it to go at least that full hour. We could have used at least 10 more minutes of wrap-up and backstory as far as where the White Vision might have gone and where he will appear again. Perhaps Doctor Strange will fetch him in an attempt to sway Wanda back from Nightmare's grasp. All right. But that is all speculation. All right, all I know is that for the entire season of WandaVision, it is a shock a thumbs up, culminating in episode 9 with a fantastic double fight scene, which was very much movie cinematic sized and scope. All right, so again, shock a thumbs up. All the way for WandaVision. If there's a season 2, I look forward to it. If not, I can't wait for these movies, Spider-Man and then the next Doctor Strange movie, to figure out her next move. And Nightmares, as I suspect, is behind that. And what his motives are. All right, thank you so much. This is Trinidad, the Island Man, your Island Man, saying mahalo and aloha.